Alrighty, welcome to episode 31 in the Mystery School podcast of the new Templars. Oh my god, why did that make a noise? I apologize. We are talking all things fusion energy tonight, and specifically how it is a method of empowerment for the society and how it can do a lot of good and how it has been shrouded in a lot of mystery, intrigue, bureaucracy, funding, and just overcomplicating something that they don't need to. So, without further ado, Xenox, take it away.
Yeah. So, what is fusion? That's the first bullet point right there. There we go. What is fusion energy and how does it differ from fossil fuels, gas, coal, oil? Um, I'm gonna explain it in layman's terms, and then I'll try to find some wiki definition for y'all. But essentially, you know, uh, I guess you could say it is a quote unquote finite source of energy, but the amount of energy gain that you get from it is so great, if done right, uh, that it's pretty much infinite because there's no way you're gonna use up all the hydrogen in the world, in the universe. That would be ridiculous. I mean, the stars can't even do that. So, and that's essentially what it is. It's using the same energy source as the sun, as the star. It, so there are different things to that. So we can kind of get into, before I explain what fusion is, we can explain the different methods of energy gain, right? So how does gas work, right? Let's start with oil, right? So you put it in your car and then you ignite it, right? So the thing about oil is that it's kind of a slow burn. Um, it's actually That's how it works, is that it's a very slow burn. And then it uses those slow burns to create, in the engine, creates like air pockets, and that's what pushes the pistons, and you get mechanical kinetic energy out of that from the burn. Um, Nuclear energy, when you get into like nuclear power plants, those are hilarious to me because they're just really fancy steam power engines, right? What you get from steam, you put in water into, or I guess you could have, is that coal power? No, yeah, you put water into like a hot source, like coal or a fire or whatever, and then you use the gas from the steam to, I'm sorry, my dog's trying to eat my food. Uh, from the water essentially, and that pushes whatever turbine to create the electricity or move the train, right? That was the most notable form of steam power trains. And it's essentially what a nuclear reactor is. They're just using the heat from the source, but that's fission, not fusion. Fission, nuclear fission is what we have everywhere today. Nuclear reactors where they have a core that's hot as shit and it's melting, and in order to contain it, they have all these scientific stuffs around it, but it also is cooled by water, and we use that conversion from water to the steam as a source of kinetic energy from the gas. And yeah, it's just an over-engineered steam engine. Coal is similar, but I don't know any examples, so we're gonna skip that. Uh, Fusion, we actually don't have any methods for getting getting the energy from the fusion reactor or the fusion core, I mean, directly. And so the best methods uh that we have today are two methods. One is the main one where you basically have like this thing that wraps around the core or the shell of the core, and it basically translates something like 5 to 15% or whatever, or even less of that heat energy into actual energy. Um, and then yeah, the other method is they use something like the individual protons or electrons. They can actually get energy from that uh somehow. But I have that written down in the data points here. Um, yeah, let's see. So it's essentially what fusion is. Oh, what is fusion? In layman's terms, then essentially what you're doing is you're, if I remember correctly, I'm gonna sound like an idiot here. I'm just trying to pull it out of my head. Um, I think it's when you, oh, I can't remember. I have to pull it up now. I'm having a brain fart. Okay. What is fusion? Okay.
Okay, so to better describe this, since he kind of had a bit of brain fart, nuclear fusion is a reaction in which two or more atomic nuclei, usually deuterium and tritium, are combined to form one or more different atomic nuclei and some atomic particles. The difference in mass between the reactants and products is manifested as either the released or absorption of energy. Let me try and get a nice little graphic here for you, so you're not
Yeah, so basically,
completely lost there,
in
guys.
layman's terms, I think what Scoop said was essentially when you combine two atoms or elements into to make another one, there's a reaction, and that energy is gained from that reaction. Um, and it's contained in a form of plasma, which is you said. I'm sorry, I cut you off. You said you were pulling something up, Scoop.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to. Oh no, it didn't work. Let me do this here. I have to reorganize stuff. I apologize. Yes, please. Rename. Let's do this. Just because it was added in last minute, and it doesn't really matter. Oh, you jerk. You lied to me. Oh, well. All right. So this kind of gives a nice little a visual on how the atoms are put together and made into a reaction. What it's putting out is the byproduct or waste that is extruded from the reaction, because unfortunately it doesn't just dissipate. It creates more atoms, and those interact with each other. That's why an atomic bomb is so powerful, because basically what it does is there's a small conventional explosion that compresses these atoms into having less physical space to bounce around, and it basically allows them to have a more likely chance of colliding with each other, thus creating the nuclear reaction kablooey. Keep going, Xenox.
Right. I think the bomb splits the atom, and this is the opposite. So it's putting two atoms together, two different elements together. But I think fusion is actually pretty stable. If you had hypothetically like a fusion reactor in the palm of your hand and you just smashed it, I don't think there would be any explosions. It would just be
No,
really hot.
no. I'm just giving that example of
Yeah.
of
I'm just
creating a
clarifying.
fusion reaction.
You did good. All right. What is the next question? Let's see here. Oh, did you want to? You're skipping all the slides. Did you want to go over that another time or right now?
I mean, we can. I just wanted to give you the next question already, so you kind of
Okay.
have it in your mind.
When and whom? Oh, you can read it. Go ahead. That's your job.
When and whom was fusion energy first theorized by, and are there any examples of ancients utilizing this power? The second part to this question is a little bit tricky, and I will kind of go into it before we go into kind of how this was theorized and some of the people that are adding more to the theory of it. We want to give you some examples to show you the scale of kind of how they're building these things, and it's a little ridiculous. So this is basically a test model in England, and it's about the size of a small room. I don't know the specific name of this one, but judging by its scale, they're relatively trying to power a campus and the relative town around them. It's not going to power an entire continent, but it's still something that is going to produce a lot of energy. When and if they get it working, most likely this is just for proof of concept and just testing, but it's still nonetheless impressive and interesting to really think about the size and scale that these things have to really get. Now, this next one is considered the tokamak, however you pronounce it. But this is supposedly going to be the biggest reactor ever built. It is in China. It has been under construction since early 2011, 2013. Do not quote me on that. I am giving a rough estimate because it's been a long time. But it was definitely pretty late into the early 2010 or early 2000s, middle of 2010s, if it was around that. And this is not expected to come online until 2026. Let me double check that so I'm not giving any tokamak reactor online projection. And it's the ITER tokamak fusion reactor. Oh, never mind. Apparently, there are more setbacks. Gotta love it. Like, this is literally a month old. Like, June 15th, 2013. That's a little ridiculous. World's largest fusion project is in big trouble. New document reveals. The International Thermonuclear Experiment Reactor, ITER, is already billions of dollars over budget and decades behind schedule. Not even its leaders can say how much more money and time it will take to complete. So that's another thing I want to point about, but we'll get into that when we really start getting into the thick of it, as some people would call it. But Xenox, keep going.
All right, let's see. All right, what is cold fusion, and does it really exist in modern world? No, slow down.
Back up. Wrong question.
I thought you answered the second one.
No.
Oh, there's a second part. Yeah. Any ancient examples?
But we
I
didn't
don't know
talk about when and whom it was theorized by.
Oh, uh,
Do you know that?
no.
Okay, well, I guess this is my job. All right, so this feller, right here, is Arthur Eddington, and he was a British astrophysicist, and he first published a paper of the fusion of hydrogen to helium in 1926. The revolutionary idea scientists would soon worldwide rush to confirm and advanced our understanding of fusion energy. So without this guy, we wouldn't even have any concept of it in our modern world. So this is now I want to make note. The 20s, the 30s were the best, the absolute best for science, because it was at the first time in history where there was no pressure of a war going on. Those ideas were not even a thought or a concept. It was just all about rebuilding a better future together. So everybody worldwide was coming together. The scientists were coming together, collaborating, going about this, going about that, coming up with this idea, coming up with that idea. And then 1938 happened, and we know what that led into. So it's very interesting that he was coming up with this in 1926, and it's something that really started just exploding. So
Yeah. If this is a great segment. You want to pull up the one of the photos of that kid with his fusion reactor?
yeah, let me do that. I had that in the beginning, but I can do it again. This is why you plan for the future. All right, who's this fella, Xenox? Who the hell is this guy?
I don't know, I forget, but that's a high school kid, and he built his own fusion reactor in his home. So it's old technology, as Scuba was saying. It's not crazy stuff that you need the world's biggest laboratory to create, nor even to do it right, as we're about to get into how this patent describes. But this kid built successfully his own fusion reactor in his own house. But the key to every fusion reactor and why we don't have fusion energy today is the energy gain. How much energy are you putting into it, and how much do you get out of it? That's the golden equation. And so yeah, they could have had. Who knows if they did? You know if they had any actual working models back then, Scoob?
There's this guy. There's enough lore on this guy to knock your socks off, and it's really the one that is overlooked because it's a story in the Bible. But the Ark of the Covenant, I would say,
For those who don't know, what is this?
the Ark of the This is the Ark of the Covenant, basically a biblical type of device that was told to hold immense and vast power, and you weren't supposed to open it. If you opened it, you're basically opening the sun, and that's very, very particular as to the wording at that. And Xenox, what is fusion energy?
Essentially the same energy that that stars use.
So
They're a little different, but it's the same concept.
So to a degree, it is a containment device for reactor that is mobile. And it's very interesting that the known writing and the known lore of the Ark of the Covenant is that it was placed at the heart of the center in the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid because the dimensions fit the actual depictions of the Ark of the Covenant, and it makes sense given to where it was and how it was traveled, if you know the geographics of the Bible and all of that fun jazz. But there's really no other ancient type of device that we can turn to historically. Yes, we can look at ancient sites all we want. You know me. I have sat here multiple times and have had us pick apart different ancient structures and have gone, okay, how does this work? Does that possibly move? Does this use friction? Like, we could do that again, but why? We're not fully talking about ancient, civilizations, although it's fun for me personally. I know it can get boring, but at the end of the day, those are just speculation. However, this is something more tangible, and it's something that is easily relatable to what we're talking about. I mean, another instance that I could think of us using ancient or fusion energy would be something like Atlantis, but with how destroyed the Rishot structure is, there's no way of really telling. There is a very exotic type of explosion that happened there. That is for certain. There is an exotic explosion that happened inside the Great Pyramid. That is 100% for certain. But as far as beyond that, we don't quite know. Okay, now what is cold fusion? Hello? All right. Hello?
Hey, Scoob. Sorry, I was talking to my dad.
Yeah. Wow.
Where were we? After I heard, I left off at the rickshaw structure, but anyway, there is history, or scientists have discovered what they claim is a quote unquote natural fission reactor, not fusion, fission. They claim somewhere, I think India or something,
Yes.
had elements and evidence of a fission reactor.
It's talked about in the Quran.
Oh,
Oh my, what are you doing to your microphone? Goodness, this is going to be cutted. Good Lord.
who, me? What's going on?
You were just shuffling on your mic. It was weird.
I'm sorry.
Okay. What is cold fusion? Does it truly exist in the modern world? And what is it? What is its intended purpose? English.
How do we define cold fusion? Let's see, because I don't even know. After reading the patent.
All right. Cold fusion is basically the idea of the same concept of a fusion reaction. However, instead of using temperatures at large degrees, it's more or less at room temperature. So basically, it is the generator that you've been talking about. They just don't call it cold fusion because why? It's room temperature. It's not necessarily ice cold. It's just a generator.
I mean, no, it gets pretty hot. But the device itself may is cold, but it gets the energy from the heat, and no, it gets freaking hot as shit. So I don't know if we can find a better definition of cold fusion, because how do you get energy gain from a cold core? I don't get that. Is it just a device that's cold?
Yeah, so it's a nuclear type of reaction that would occur at or near room temperature. It would contrast starkly with the hot fusion that is known to take place naturally within stars and artificially in hydrogen bombs and prototype fusion reactors under immense pressure and at temperatures of millions of degrees, and distinguished from muon catalyzed fusion. There is no currently accepted theoretical model that, now this is just Wikipedia. However, in 1989, two electrochemists, Martin Fishman, it's also very interesting the date, and Stanley Pons, reported that their apparatus had produced anomalous heat, excessive heat of a magnitude they asserted that would defy an explanation except in terms of nuclear process. They were further reported measuring small amounts of nuclear reaction byproducts, including neutrons and tritium. The small tabletop experiment involved electrolysis of heavy water on the surface of a palladium electrode. The report results received a wide media attention and raised hopes of a cheap and abundant source of energy. Many scientists tried to replicate the experiments with few details available. Hopes faded with the large number of negative replications, the withdrawal of many reported positive replications, the discovery of flaws and sources of experimental error in the original experiment, and finally the discovery that Fishman and Pons had not actually detected nuclear reaction byproducts. By late 1989, most scientists considered cold fusion claims dead, and cold fusion subsequently gained a reputation as pathological science. In 1989, the U.S. Department of Energy concluded that report results of excess heat did not present convincing evidence of a useful source of energy and decided against allocating funding specifically for cold fusion. So it's kind of funny how in 1989, we have these two scientists just finally discover it, and all of a sudden these guys are trying to replicate it supposedly, but they're missing data. Why are they missing data? Why are the people that are trying to replicate this missing data? Now I want to reintroduce this, okay? The small tabletop experiment involved electrolysis of heavy water on the surface of a palladium electrode, okay? So basically, electrolysis of water is making the water electrolyzing the water. So basically, the moment you touch it, you're dead. It's like throwing a toaster inside of a bathtub with it plugged in. Basically the same concept. And then you're taking a palladium electrode and you're essentially heating it up, and it somehow creates a byproduct of nuclear waste, or nuclear reaction byproducts of neutrons and tritium. So essentially being at room temperature, because the electrified cold water, it has to be cold water. That's what they mean by heavy. If I remember correctly, let me see what they mean. Is water formed whose hydrogen atoms are all deuterium. And okay, so it's a heavier dense water. So it's going about it in a way that's more practical versus just making an entire building size fucking reactor. Because as you can see, we are seeing an absolute fucking onslaught for them to crawl at a snail's like an abysmal fucking snail's pace. Excuse my French, but it's a little ridiculous at this point that we don't have anything, that we are in 2023, for God's fucking sakes, and we're still using gas, coal, and oil, and now we have an argument basically saying if we go all electric, we are going to destroy our grid, and then that's just like, well, what the fuck? What? What the fuck? What's the point then? Why are we pushing ourselves to buy electric cars if there's no sustainability for it on the grid that still relies on the three fucking, I hate to say it, but it's the three fucking blood sets of the earth. You have gas, coal, and the literal blood of the earth, oil. Xenox, I
Yeah.
would continue because I'm gonna get ranty.
I really like the way you described the water, because the patent that we're gonna get into later actually does the same exact thing. It electrifies the gases, not the water, but it uses two different types of gases, and it does something else to them too. But it electrifies it, and that is what creates the reaction. So you don't, I guess, what they're doing with the other reactors is that they're using this immense heat, like the sun, or we don't even know if the sun does this, because at this point I don't trust science that much. But essentially, they're using this immense heat to then create the reaction, right? And then this is the problem, right? So they're putting all this energy to create the heat to get the reaction, but they don't get enough energy from the reaction, or if they maybe don't put in as much energy, they don't have, when they do have an energy gain, the core is not stable. Um, so it's just like they're failing all around because it's either not stable or they're just heating it up to such a point to where it's not even useful because you're using so much energy to get the reaction in the first place that gives you the energy. And that is cold fusion. It's not actually cold, it's really hot, but the reaction, as Scuba was saying, happens at room temperature.
And I also want to make note that, you know, we're dealing with scientists in the mainstream, not in the five contractors, and that's a whole nother conversation. I really want to go into that, the five contractors of the military industrial complex, because that's a rabbit hole. But anyways, what we're dealing with in the mainstream science is a bunch of people that get excited that they get 17 minutes of, pure output after spending so much fucking power to start it. Like, think of it this way. You know how you have your car to start your engine? Imagine if your battery, your battery was not the size of your car, was not the size of your house, but was the size of a fucking warehouse. You just have to plug. You have this big ass battery that's the size of a warehouse to fit an entire facility of Amazon workers. And you have these two little cords, and you're plugging it up to your car, and then you can start it. It's the most impractical fucking thing I've ever heard of, and for the longest time, I've been trying to wrap my head around it, trying to accept it as something that is okay, and it's great for our society. But as Xenox is going to start really getting into, it's bullshit.
All right, you want me to go?
Go for it, bro. And
All
what with the current size and scale of power plants, is there a way of making them significantly more compact?
Yeah, I don't really know why they're so large today. I think it's just their efforts to, one, contain the plasma core, and two, the heat to create the reaction and then contain that heat, and just like Scuba and I already said, just a massive amount of power that they're putting into it. You'd think if you started out, doing this, and you could see clearly that the data shows that if you're going to use this method, it's not going to be efficient. It's not going to work. You would think they would start using different methods, but no, they're just going to build it bigger and spend even more money on it. Like, it's going to change. To me, it's 2 plus 2, but I'm not a physicist. Um, I'm sure some people would critique me, but I say go read the patent. Don't worry, we're gonna get into that, guys. I don't really have much else to say why the current scale and size of power plants,
Can
and
I, may
which
I,
yeah,
sorry to interrupt. Have either of you ever been in a power plant?
a fusion power plant? No.
Okay, well, I didn't know if they were talking about just even, there's a lot of large equipment that in the event that there's a fire or, contamination or whatever, and if any of this equipment goes down, you've got to have room to move that out, to move new stuff in. And if you've ever seen the size of their elevators, um,
It's ridiculous.
oh, well, they need that space for a reason. They really do. I know I've been in a coal plant and the generators and all those, I mean, they're humongous. They're just huge. And if any of those parts were to break down, to replace those, they've got to have a way to get it out and get a new one in. So if you think about it that way, yes, it's nice
100%.
if they could make things smaller.
100%. And I'm not gonna completely disregard you on that one. However, I do feel like there is a disconnect because as we're really starting to get into these patents, we have to go into it with the mindset that these are patents that are being made by military contractors. So unfortunately, these are plans, these are documents, these are information that the MIC has just plucked out of existence and said, "Nope, you're mine. The population can't have that. They get this. They can figure it out in fucking 30 years after we've already used it as much as we feel like, and we're old and tired and made trillions of fucking dollars off of you, and then we'll feel like giving it to you because we've already cashed in." I hate that I'm going into that, but it's so crucial with all of these patents because it's unfortunate that we live in a society where five military industrial complex companies basically control the entire monopoly on technology and innovation.
Yeah, I didn't want to get into this point very much because it does have something to do with the patent, but you can make them compact. So the patent describes that you can build those reactors from 0.3 to 1 meters large, meaning that's like a foot or less large, which is pretty insane. I mean, you could put that in your motorcycle, your car, and have your own cold fusion device with basically infinite power yield. So, uh, not even to mention your house. You just put a 5-foot reactor in your house, bam. You'd never have to pay an electric bill again. I mean, you have to pay someone to do maintenance on it, maybe, or something breaks, yeah. But bye-bye electric industry. That's another reason why we don't have this. And you have all these countries trying to centralize it too, and create trying to figure out a way. I think the reason they're doing it like this is because they want to figure out a way to make it a cash cow, right? You have money going in and money coming out, and there's only one place that it's centralized in, versus if there were multiple smaller reactors spread throughout the world. And as we saw, the high schooler kid, he just made a reactor himself. But the problem is with the methods that are used in our days now is that the smaller the reactor, the less that the power gain is. And that's still going to be the case with this patent. It's just that, you're not going to get any energy gain really with that size using today's methods.
Kind of going into a little bit of Salvador Pius as we did last time we talked about these patents. This is basically what he propose the plasma compression fusion device, which is not any bigger than a normal engine motor. It's pretty insane. This is it on a more zoomed in. I know you're not going to really understand. It's kind of just a diagram from the patent, but basically all you really need to understand is this is the main center, this is the core, and it rotates. That's why it's got these motions. The physical device moves. Okay, that's one aspect that must be understood with a lot of these generators that are coming out. What is the fundamental law of energy? It moves forward. It does not stop. It moves forward. Energy has to go somewhere. Okay. So why are they constantly making such stationary generator devices, but have the plasma itself moving around, but no internal parts moving with the energy? We have to understand the physical manifestation of energy is a torsion field. So it is a donut. It is a donut that is constantly compressing and expanding, compression and expansion, compression and expansion. So it is a constant movement of flow. To have such stationary devices, you are doing a disservice to most of any type of energy that ever existed in the history of man. Even to a degree, fire moves. Fire is not stationary. That is a form of energy, unfortunately. It is a deadly form of energy, but it is a form of energy. Continue, Xenox.
Yeah, I don't think I can add on to that anymore, other than you could see the holes there. You'd have the gases coming in there, and the gas would be rotating throughout the device. So the tubes, it's gonna be like rushed, and the gas is gonna be rotated and rushed through the tubes as it's moving, and then the gas is gonna kind of spiral into the core as well, and then it uses an electromagnetic field to compress it, and that's how it's contained and held with its such high heats too. So that's another difference, is that they're using physics, as Scuba was saying. They're using geometry to amplify the physics, and then they're also using electromagnetism. And that's essentially the key from the original cold fusion experiment that was done in the 80s. As we viewed, it was done with water, but they were utilizing electromagnetism or some form of that.
Agreed, and that is an element that is completely lost with most modern science, is the use and the practical sense of electromagnetism, because it is extremely powerful. What is the difference between? Does somebody have something to say?
I don't know if this is going to ruin the questions. Could you compare this to what was being done in the pyramids?
See, you missed that. You completely missed that part of the conversation. So
earlier? I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. So basically what I did is I went into the idea of the Ark of the Covenant, because it really is the only true example that we have of a fusion reactor in ancient times, and how that was connected with the pyramids, and there was an explosion in the pyramids. That is a known fact. And they know that because the entire room was pushed out 1 inch. You're talking about solid granite and something, the room being pressurized so much that it literally extruded outward 1 inch. And you have the whole thing with the Rishak structure. I can't talk. I'm sorry. But yeah, we basically went into it earlier, but good point.
That was question number 2?
Yes, sir.
Okay, my bad. Time passed by. I was doing laundry.
You're good.
Stupid laundry.
You're good. So what is the difference between limitless energy and seemingly limitless energy, and what is more practical? Take it away.
Yeah, I still don't even know. It's kind of like a question mark in my head as we compare today's patent and the anti-gravity patent. I still don't know if we have any definitions that have been described as true 0 point energy, which 0 point energy is limitless, meaning it would be theoretically impossible to ever run out of any source of energy. Um, Now, seemingly limitless, while there is a theoretical limit to how much energy you can create, um, the practical implications of that would just be not possible at all whatsoever. Like I mentioned earlier, uh, you would have to burn up all of the elements in the universe for you to, uh, you know, or the world for you to get rid of that, and that's just not practical at all. And that's pretty much the difference, is that there's no practical way, there's no possible way of you using all the energy in the ocean from a fusion reactor. It's just not possible. And so it's essentially limitless energy. Uh, it's just not 0 point, and that's, I guess, a really fine line. Um, but you could call it
So,
that, but it doesn't.
so to basically put it in layman's terms is, as he's saying, imagine if your energy was based upon Earth's ocean. All right. If we were to, and this is just a statistic, if we were to basically start draining Earth's ocean and using it for energy, there would still be more water. It is ridiculous how much fucking water is on planet Earth. And to put that into perspective, it to start draining Earth's oceans, it would take us roughly 500 to 1,000 years, and even then, we would still be finding more water because it evaporates and just comes back right back in. And that's one of the interesting things with this seemingly limitless is that there is an element of it recycling itself. It doesn't just disappear, and that's a fundamental interesting aspect to all of this. And why is seemingly limitless more practical? Because at the end of the day, there is still a number that can be mathematically found as an endpoint versus it just being infinity. Because, if you have infinity, you don't really need to worry about physical items at that point. If you have unlimitless energy, that is, words do not describe the ability that your society has. Just put it that way.
Yeah, I'm gonna make fun of you though. I don't know where you got that 1,000-year number from. I don't think it would even be possible for in a million years for us to drain the entire ocean.
I mean, we're talking about, you're talking about a group that literally discusses the Earth tilting and, the world's oceans just consuming continents. I mean, if we really put it into perspective, if every single 7 billion person was consuming water at a reasonable rate every single day, like, there would be a dent. There would be some sort of like, okay, we're getting a little crazy here.
This is the same kind of talk as oil to an extent.
Exactly.
I don't think it's really going anywhere. I mean, we live in a globe, whatever, closed system, either way. I don't think it's ever going to go anywhere. I mean, when it rains here in North Carolina, man, it is humid for a couple freaking days. I mean, it doesn't leave anywhere. So, it's a coin toss, I guess.
It's fascinating. All right. Will the collective ever receive free energy, or this seemingly limitless energy, or is the suppression of this technology safeguarded indefinitely? So, as I sit here and I read back this question, I'm really thinking about that it really does kind of boil down to the conversation that I only really wanted to touch upon. And it is the 5 corporations of the military-industrial complex. And unfortunately, as long as those 5 companies are a monopoly, yes, it is safeguarded indefinitely. Until they feel like bringing it out to us, we will never have it. Because their only goal is to make money. That is unfortunate that this is our military contractors being as greedy as they are, but that's just how it is. And it is the Pentagon and the government directly, it's their fault. And to a degree, I kind of feel like there was an element to that as to why that was for the consolidation, because of the rampant need and want for exotic spacecraft. And if you have 50 different defense contractors, the word will get out real quick. But if you have 5 that are all working in tandem and are basically one entity, because imagine it this way. There's a defense missile system that we have called the Patriot missiles. Okay? The targeting system is made by Eagle Dynamics. The propulsion system is made by Lockheed Martin. The payload is made by Raytheon. Do you understand what I'm saying here? They have different parts of all 5 companies in these weapons, and they can't work without each other, and they keep the documents. So, will this technology be safeguarded indefinitely? I hope not. You know, with UAP Disclosure Act of 2023, with Space Force, with Donald Trump being a real businessman. I know, I'm sorry, it's just the president and this is military contracts, but he's the commander-in-chief, and if he really wanted to, he could negotiate these deals, because all of these deals were made under Jimmy Carter and a Reagan administration, and we are long since past that time, guys. We deserve this shit, and there's no point in being rich anymore. It doesn't mean anything. It has no real value. Why? Because within the next year, our dollar is gonna crash anyways. So what the fuck is the point? Any comments on that one? I know that was a rant, but fuck. Xenox? Anybody?
Nope.
All right. How can we as individuals start to use more advanced energies in our daily lives, and what comes of it? So, I just want to get this fear out of the way. If anybody is listening to this recording who happens to be a genius out there and is scrolling through the internet at 3 a.m. looking for some type of fringe content and it led you to us, please do not ever be afraid to go for it. If you can make a generator for your community, fucking go for it. I don't care if you're in Africa. I don't care if you're in South Africa. I don't care if you're in Madagascar or Papua New Guinea. If you are smart and have the intellect, fucking go for it. You have the internet at your disposal, and just go for it. Don't let the government, don't let the system, don't let fear, do not let anything else stop you. Just go for it, because you are making a real difference in our society, and you are making the pioneering step that we need to at least prepare ourselves for a brighter future.
Yeah, and by the way, if you want some inspiration, the Navy, uh, alongside Salvatore Baez, patented a fusion reactor, which we're about to get into. And so that is another leading back to the last question, it is not 100% suppressed anymore because these patents are world changing. Each one of them will individually change the world, and honestly, in my personal opinion, I think this one is the most important one, because the energy crisis is real, and who needs flying cars if you have an energy crisis?
I agree. Do you want to read some passages on the patent? Don't
Yeah,
read them.
I'm just gonna go through the data points.
Don't go through them all. Go through the important ones, because it can get a little jarring.
Oh, well, all right. That's why I kind of summarized it in a text document. But all right. So, the first four, oh, I gotta read the first four. Okay. All right. So it's gonna describe the background. All right. So thermonuclear fusion involves the forcing together of light nuclei to form heavier nucleus, which the effect occurs the generation of energy expressed in E equals mc squared. Um, Fusion occurs at extremely high temperatures, exceeding the core temperature of the sun, which is approximately 15 million degrees Celsius. For example, the deuterium tritium fusion reaction, which is the gases that they use, occurs at temperatures in excess of 175 million degrees Celsius. So that's literally like over 100 times hotter than the core of the sun. And the other one, the deuterium/deuterium fusion, occurs at 232 million degrees Celsius. So yeah, crazy stuff, man. And the gas will ionize and form a plasma, which, for those of you that don't know, plasma is the fourth state of matter. So you have what? Solid, liquid, gas. That's number 3. Number 4, plasma. If you don't know what plasma is, look it up. Okay. And the assemble of the plasma, this is essentially an enormous number of electrons with positive ions that constantly interact with each other and exchange energy. 3 primary methods for containing or confining the plasma in order to make ions are gravitational confinement, inertial confinement, or magnetic confinement. In order to have fusion from gravitational source, you need like stellar sized masses. So we'll move past that one. Thus, inertial and magnetic confinement are the only practical methods, or you can even use a hybrid of the two. You have laser-driven implosions with electric fields, and then you have magnetic confinement, which is generated through magnetic induction, which the tokamak, I think it uses powerful magnetic field to confine the plasma in the shape of a torus, which is, I guess, generated by revolving a circle in 3 dimensions, and using magnetic mirrors, cups, pitches, and magnetized targets. So yeah, they're getting pretty close. And is the tokamak Lockheed Martin, or is that China? I forget. Do you know?
China.
China. Okay. All right. And all these methods apparently have grave issues um as a large size. Uh the size of an aircraft carrier, requires the plasma instability. So the problem with the tokamak is that the plasma is unstable, and then you have power loss and short confinement times, because it's so large, and the magnetic mirror cost machines, I don't know, it just doesn't work. And none of the confinement methods to date have been able to achieve to break even on the fusion reactions, um, which is essentially the fusion power output is equal to the input, let alone the power that's required to achieve the ignition where the burn, and then sustaining the burn, um, and then getting the external power input. And so it's just like they're way far off the mark. As a result, there's the need for effective plasma compression fusion device, and that is what gives us this patent, right? So that was the summary. Data points 5, 6, and 7. It gets into the quantum vacuum plasma, or the QVP, which is essentially the electric glue of our plasma universe. The Casimir effect, the Lamb shift, and spontaneous emission are all confirmations of QVP. Let me make sure this is the right patent. Oh wait, Scuba, you had me download the wrong patent, or the wrong text.
It was the one that don't look at me.
Oh boy. All right, hold on.
Maybe you should put it literally, with all of the information about reactors. Yeah. Kind of fuck up on your end there, bud.
Yeah, hold
on.
I could always read from the actual. Oh wait, what the heck? All right. That's weird. All right. Well,
are you good? Because if not, I am going to move on.
Give me 1 second.
Well, we still have one more topic of the night, and that's going to be a meaty one.
Give me a minute.
Okay.
Figure the conundrum out.
You have 1 minute.
No. Oh, okay. Well, what happened was you combined the two things. Okay.
I did, yeah. I made it all one text document. You are correct.
Well, you confused me now.
How is that confusing? That's supposed to make your life easy.
All right. All right, let me scroll to the right section now. Now that we have it.
Dingus.
Okay. All right. Well, we already read all that. 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 5, 6, 7 is not important. So number 8, it says, quote, "It is a feature of the present invention to provide a plasma compression device that can produce power in the gigawatt to terawatt range and higher," which is pretty insane, with an input of mere kilowatts to megawatts. So we use kilowatts and megawatts pretty much everywhere. It's not nothing fancy, but gigawatts and terawatts is insane. 9 through 13 is not important. Number 14, it says, "In the description of the present invention, the invention will be discussed in terms of space, sea, or terrestrial environment. However, this invention can be utilized for any type of application that requires the use of energy generation. In general, the invention uses controlled motion and electrically charged matter via accelerated vibration and/or accelerated spin, subjected to smooth yet rapid acceleration, in order to generate the extremely high energy and high intensity electromagnetic fields, which is not only used to confine the plasma, but also greatly compress it so as to produce a high power, high density plasma burn, leading to ignition and energy gain." And essentially that explains that the matter is introduced, the gases, the two gases that we mentioned earlier. It's electrically charged and vibrated and then spun in an accelerated manner. But the acceleration has to be smooth. That's key to it. And then this generates the intense magnetic field. The magnetic field confines and compresses the plasma, and the confinement of the plasma for sustainable burn was the issue in previous inventions in the mainstream. Like the tokamak reactor used the magnetic confinement, but it wasn't sustainable. And the compression device uses geometry and electromagnetism to enhance the vibration and motion. And that solves the efficiency and allows it to be on a scale practical for application. In other words, it doesn't have to be friggin' massive. All right, and the tubing structures are responsible for carrying the electric charge, and charged gases are let's see. So the tube's made out of tungsten and high capacitance, such as tungsten nitride or any type of metal alloy that's practical. So, I guess metals that we have already. If you're interested in the geometry of the tubes, we're not going to describe that. But the gases are used in pretty much every fusion fuel, which is deuterium gas, which is introduced into the plasma core. So each toroidal magnetic coil must be disposed between two electrical grids, and the grids are used to ionize the gas and are kept at differently opposite charged voltages so that to create the electrostatic charge and they accelerate each other, the ions and electrons into the plasma core. So it accelerates the ions, the gas ions, and it accelerates it into the plasma core to get the desired physical effect. It actually, pretty much in a similar way, that's used in ion thrusters. So again, not new technology, just a different way of using it. The gases, yep, we already got that. They're opposing charges, so they accelerate each other into the core. That's kind of cool. And then already got that. So, okay, I guess it goes into negative voltage, and it has the ability to switch the electrical charge, exhibiting a potential difference in the plasma core, forming a deep negative potential well. This negative potential well greatly accelerates the positively charged ions towards it, and the ions keep recycling around the well and undergo fusion in the high temperature core, which essentially is the opposing charges of the electromagnetic field, as stated before, create a high rate of acceleration that enables the core to have a charge. So the core has to have a charge continuously, and the negative well of ions attract that positive well of ions, and that's kind of what aids in the acceleration. So the grid accelerates the ions, right? And it's pushed, and then the ions have opposite charges, so they push each other. And then in addition to that, the core has a negative well that attracts the ions towards it. And the spin from the electromagnetic field and the opposing charges. The high rate of spin from the charged ions creates a large amount of electromagnetic radiation, allowing the intense temperatures to be generated. Okay, let's see, and it uses, here's a description of the inside of the device. It says the inner surfaces of the dynamic fusers are well insulated against the electrical charge, but without limitation. It uses silicon carbide, boron nitride, boron carbide liners, and an alloy of tungsten. And then, yep, let's see. Oh yeah, the motors it uses, which is the dynamic fusers. It's stuff that we use every day. It's, quote, a variable power DC induction motor, and that uses that and a gas reservoir and can be accelerated or decelerated in the spin via digital controller. I think we use the dynamic infusers in microwaves or something like that. I can't remember. But essentially what I just described with the motor and the charge, it essentially allows it to there to be like a lever, so it can control what's going on inside the vacuum chamber and how much energy you get, etc. And the first equation explains the high temperature confinement time, and that the pressure equals greater output of energy, and so it's not popping or fizzing, it's stable. And the most important part of the equation states that each time you double the magnetic induction, you shrink the size of the reactor in half, which is, quote, extremely important in developing a compact fusion device. So if you want to make it small, you got to know how much magnetic induction you need to create the reactor. In other words, you can put it in your car, home, and such, so it could be 0.3 to 2 meters in diameter, which is ridiculously small. The different versions include devices like Lockheed Martin, Skunk Works, Compact Fusion Reactor, EMC2 Polywell Fusion Concept, and the Princeton Field Reverse Configuration Machine. And pretty much all those fail because they don't use any of these concepts, and they're just using the old concepts as we discussed. The LMCR magnetic mirror configuration uses toroidal magnetic coils to generate the field which create heat in the confined plasma, and the Polywell device uses a hybrid plasma confinement heating scheme and magnetic confinement, blah blah. Let's see. But the problem with them is that I think the confinement time, let me see. Yeah, the device features a short plasma confinement time, possible plasma instabilities, the scaling and size. Again, so they don't get the size or the scaling right, and then the times are way too short. And so they never break even with the fusion condition or have a self-sustaining burn. Oops. Essentially, they're just not practical. The key to fusion, quote, the key to fusion rests in the achievement of extremely high magnetic fields. So that's one of the issues is you need an extremely high magnetic field, exceeding 30 Tesla, which I don't know what that is, which not even high temperature. Oh yeah, so that is apparently insanely powerful. So high temperature rare earth barium copper oxide superconducting magnets can't even generate that kind of that power in the magnets. However, extremely high B fields can be generated by controlled motion, as Scooby was saying, motion of electrically charged matter. This is where you get the motion via accelerated spin and / or accelerated vibration subjected to rapid acceleration transients. Essentially, the high-power magnetic field generated from the spinning gases and the vibrations within the chamber are more powerful than any of the most exotic rare magnets that you could have ever discovered on the planet Earth. And the method allows for high levels of magnetism, which is essentially what contains and compresses the plasma for fusion process, and that's why this patent allows you to have a stable reaction. And then we get more into physical description of the device. It utilizes controlled motion and electrically charged matter via acceleration and vibration. Again, it has to be smooth yet rapid. Acceleration, deceleration, on all that to generate the high intensity electromagnetic field. Fields not only confine the plasma but greatly compress it and give it that high negative potential for that strong pull and high power density burn. And that leads to the ignition and the high intensity electromagnetic radiation heats the plasma core and the produced magnetic field confines it. Again, with the dynamic fusers, which is not new technology. The inner surface is electrically charged and vibrated in order to prevent the plasma particles from impacting the walls, so everything's going straight into the core. And so, yeah, the vibrating can be achieved by passing an electrical charge through the piezoelectric films, such as lead, zirconate, titanate, embedded in the device, particularly in the inner surface. The plasma compression fusion device may be in it has to be housed in a Faraday cage for safety. Otherwise, you're going to get cooked by the magnetic radiation, and that's not fun. All you need is 10 to 15 centimeters of thick boron carbide or tungsten alloy, which acts as the cage and also incorporates cooling channels for the thermal conversion cycle, which I think is that's how you get your energy. As well as it provides structural support and integrity to withstand the fusion-induced neutron bombardment. So it also provides protection for all the friggin' neutrons going through the whole place, through the reactor. Plasma instabilities would be minimized by suppressing the shearing flows generated by the fusers, so those help stabilize it as well. Otherwise, it would be torn apart by the turbulence of the plasma, which is regarded as the main source of instabilities in the fusion reaction. So, essentially, it's not smooth enough, and yeah. So, a description of the energy transforms it into electrical energy, and those sit flush with the plasma device around the outer wall and carry the neutron-produced heat to a thermoelectric generator via cooling fluid, such as water or polyalpha olefin. So again, technology we already have. The mixture of gases, and an additional mixture of gases are deuterium gas that are introduced in the plasma core through the fusers, injected through the orifices. The Oh yeah, so deuterium is essentially heavy hydrogen, and it can be abundantly extracted from seawater, and it's quote virtually limitless fuel source, right? Even if you don't, I mean, you could source it from the freaking moon or moons or asteroids, right? So infinite, basically. The fusion fuel can be neutronic or aneutronic. Neutronic fuel can be deuterium, tritium, or deuterium, deuterium, or deuterium, xenon. Um, any gas is practical. Let's see. Oh yeah, so they should be same in chemical composition. So deuterium xenon mixture can produce xenon 129 with the release of two fast, highly energetic neutrons, which would greatly amplify the power output. However, consideration of the wall degradation and enhanced radioactivity effects need to be considered before operational safety, which is basically saying if you want to make this device even stronger, you can. You're gonna have to do some changes to it, but already at this point, you've already changed the world, so you don't even need to, right? But the aneutronic fusion fuel can uh, be proton boron 11 for a fusion at more than 10 times the fusion temperature of the neutronic fuel. In this case, there would be no neutrons released, hence no radioactive dangers. For the hydrogen boron fuel, there is 1 in 1,000 chance of a gamma ray channel being formed, which in the case of a full operational device would demand great caution. So direct energy conversion and extracting fusion power from the plasma conversion device, since the products of the neutronic fuel are particles, are three alpha particles, helium, 3 helium, whatever. I don't know what that says. The charged particles via the high-tech transformer are made viable. The main issue with aneutronic fuel is that it demands fusion temperature of 2 billion degrees Celsius and higher, almost 10 times that to increase the neutronic field, such as preferred. So it's basically saying, like, yeah, you can get into different ways of doing this, but you're just creating more problems for yourself, and that's only if you need even more power, which is still, again, would you just be getting greedy. So this gives the chemical reaction equation, which explains why deuterium is preferable. If I'm even deuterium, deuterium, if I'm saying that right.
It's
You got
deuterium, yes.
scientists out there can correct me.
It's deuterium. You are correct.
Deuterium, yeah. So it's 2H, which is, I think, 2 hydrogen molecules. So it's just they call it heavy hydrogen.
Any more points?
Yeah, it gives you the actual chemistry equation on the gas, so you can literally make this yourself.
How much more do we gotta get into? Because there's still a whole other topic that I gotta talk about.
Okay. So, and then it gets into the I'll speed through this. The level of compression that you need in the vacuum, and that is 10 to 5 torr is desirable. And it goes into let's see. Oh, yeah, the second equation describes the hertz and spin in the geometry in order to make the energy gain with the vibration and the spins and stuff to amplify everything. So that's for the nerds out there. That's math above our heads. And then we're gonna get into let's see. Skip all this stuff because that's pretty much the same.
Basically, what does this all mean? That there's a lot of shit hidden from us, essentially?
Yeah, and because all this is telling us, like here it says, it gives us like the literal diameter of the fusers that are spinning and at the exact RPM that you need, um, and the materials that it's made out of. It gives you all the math, all the stuff. Like I said, if this high schooler can create, a rudimentary fusion device, a team of scientists not that large should be able to do this for pretty cheap,
Right.
comparatively anyway, to the other devices out there, you know. But again, the problem that we've had with Salvatore Pais, uh, we've mentioned this in his other patents, is that um, the social engineering is so crazy that anytime he would go to a university or a journal article to try and publish his stuff, they would look at him like he was crazy and they wouldn't take it.
Right.
Um, oh yeah, so this is important here. So the invention, like I said, can produce gigawatt to terawatt range or higher with the input to kilowatt or megawatt. Uh, and then oh yeah, and then it says the last point here, the descriptions of the patent should not limit the device, as there are only preferential descriptions and other or greater, and I said it again, other or greater embodiments are possible. Uh, so yeah, that's it.
So basically, in a nutshell, that was fusion energy, a very tangible and real thing that is real in the public, but also hidden from the public. And we hope in our lifetimes that we actually get to see this technology. Now, moving on to another part of the conversation that we usually get into, going to move this over.
Can I ask you a question, please?
Oh, of course.
Hypothetically, now I really want you two brainiacs to think outside of the box. Hypothetically, if you could control the vibrations and the compressions and the time and the stability, what would you use this energy for? Just a brainstorming and hypothetical. How would you use this
I
energy?
mean, that question is a question that can be asked for every individual on Earth because this device would be small enough and cheap enough for everyone to have, essentially. So,
I'm thinking in the field of CERN and lightning and rods of God and just compressed. And as far as that business in China, they've been using it for a while. They just, like you said, haven't told us, but if they told us and showed this much, there's stuff going on. So it's for some reason, I have no idea why, I'm thinking of material and something to do with hovercrafts and something to do with the breaking of the warp speed and just, like you said, palpable energy that you can mold and field and
well,
and
you're right on the money because the same guy who made this patent, he has the anti-gravity patent that has a craft that can travel faster than the speed of light, which we went into our last video.
No,
We'll
not
probably
all. Two
chat.
videos.
Yeah. So,
It was a very good question. Thank you. If I were to answer it bluntly, what I would do with it, I would not ever really have to. I would set it up in a place in my house to where it wouldn't be susceptible to the big boom, and being able to use it as long as I live and pass it down generations to come. Because it would definitely be something that I would treat as like a family heirloom. Andrew,
that kind of energy.
hold on, there's two people, one at a time. Andrew, you first, then Willow.
I love the. Can you guys hear me clearly? First
Yes,
of all,
you're just hot micing.
okay,
So just
okay. Everybody keeps on thinking about like zapping to the Star Trek and everything, but I mean, you're still not applying things that I would like to see things happen here on this Earth, like fusion energy, med beds for everybody, or some kind of sort, food replicators, and that's the extreme. But I mean, it could just go to electric culture, simple things of just not having to pay your electricity bill, you know, very simple. That could save you so much more money to invest in whatever you want to move forward to get to that Star Trek point.
You know, that's what I was going to say when we both started talking together. Med beds and the replicators and stuff. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I think we'll see it. I hope so.
we all do. But
Well,
now
with the food grown stuff and what they're trying to push on us, I mean, everybody can't be a farmer. That takes a lot of time. I mean, I gave up on my tomato plants. They're bending over. I'm like, they're growing so tall.
don't
I
give
can't
up
I
on
can't
them.
control it. No,
Don't give
I'm
up on
not
them.
giving up. It's just they're too tall. My raised bed, so I've got to deal with like 8, 12 feet above me, and it's a lot of work. A lot of tomatoes though, but it's beautiful. It's just
How about if you use this energy for a filter to clean the water and the air and the soil super fast? I mean, I think that could happen too.
use the technology for this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very first, this is what we need to deal with, not just. I love fusing energy. It's just I kind of feel I don't know. Is there any repercussions from this? Is there any negativity from this? Like it's like a grenade.
No, not really. I mean, yeah, there's some risks involved, but as long as you treat it as if it's as dangerous as a gun, you should be fine.
Okay.
I mean, it's no more dangerous than your car, basically. I mean, your car can explode and ignite on fire if you're not careful with it.
I've seen that happen on the road.
It's going to burn a lot hotter, but it's going to dissipate, right? Because the core is very unstable and it's a lot smaller than a tank of gas. So
it won't be a nuclear bomb either.
What's that?
It won't be a nuclear bomb either.
Yeah, no, there's no nuclear radiation, no bomb. The only radiation that you have to worry about is from the active magnetic radiation field that's going on while the device is working, but assuming you break it, that field would not last very long, so I doubt you'd get much harm from that, but I could be wrong.
Alrighty, going on to the last topic of the night that we usually go into, our big ball in the sky. I don't even want to hear it from either you, Andrea, or Matt Xenox. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. We do not have a flat sun. It is a fucking sphere. And this is a video from Suspicious Observers, also known as Ben Davison, and he really does a good job at outlining what's going on with the sun on a daily basis.
Hey folks, as you know, there is a solar storm on the way in the next 48 hours. It's not expected to be a kill shot, but it should provide a significant whack to Earth's magnetic field. Now, rather than answering 1,000 specific questions from the comments about what's going to happen when the event occurs, I'm going to quickly go over several of the items that occur or become risks when solar storms do occur. Solar flares, geomagnetic storms, etc. So we're going to hit 3 topics here. We'll discuss technological, biological, and geophysical impacts of space weather. So in the biggest events, nothing technological is safe. Those red items at the bottom are possible when big solar storms occur, but are not likely to occur with this event. if this solar storm hits hard enough to drive a level 3 geomagnetic storm, we could see the upper list in green: GPS issues, large-scale system issues like airline systems, the PlayStation network. We will always see electrical fires uptick during solar storm activity, and generally, internet issues tend to crop up on localized and maybe regional levels, but probably not on any larger scale, at least not with this event. The meat of what I wanted to communicate here today is the health issues. The entire population is subject to heart rate and blood pressure fluctuations with inclement space weather, which causes enhanced stroke and heart attack risk for already at-risk patients, generally not going to be a problem for a healthy person. Those with autoimmune diseases have shown to have flare-ups during inclement space weather, and the same goes for those prone to migraines or seizures. An equally important issue is the mental impact. Hippocampus impacts of space weather tend to cause cognition drops. Basically, we get a bit dumber. While this is happening, the locus coeruleus is excited, which enhances anxiety and panic reactions, not to mention overall emotional instability. So try not to argue with your spouse. Just let stuff go if possible. Be a bit more considerate if you can. Here are some geophysical items we like to look for. We get positive influence on ENSO, that's El Nino and La Nina, PDO, NEO, along with pretty much all major oscillations and patterns in the atmosphere. The jet streams tend to strengthen a bit, both in wind speed and jet continuity. Solar events are directly tied to global temperatures, and the impact on the global electric circuit enhances storm activity and lightning. The induced electric currents in the crust from space weather tend to also cause enhanced seismic activity. Tomorrow morning, we're actually going to see a new study on that confirming the correlation. Folks, in chapters 4, 5, 6, and 7 of Weatherman.
So then he just kind of goes into his book, The Weatherman's Guide to the Sun. Andrea can attest that it is a fantastic book that anybody should read if you're watching the recording. And just kind of going by here. It's going to hit Earth, but it's not anything to really worry about. It's scary, yes. It could potentially take out power. It's something to worry about, indeed. This last one that went off, that's completely away from Earth. But there was another one that was pointed directly this way, as you saw in the video previously. This was that explosion right here. And just kind of giving you a view on this satellite. This satellite measures specifically light, and you can see when the explosion on the sun goes off. Look at that, just a big old light ball of light. And that's the wind going after the sensors.
Look at that great big flat space here. You'll never win.
Guess not. All right. So he's not here. He popped in for a little bit. Actually ended the call. But we got to do him justice. Check out Know Thyself. He's got his own little mystery school going on. It is a very good setup that he's got. Very in-depth spiritual topics that I highly recommend you give a try and really start diving deep into yourself. It's definitely a gathering of a lifetime. Junk is also a mute.
Okay, you finally said his name. You didn't say his name at first, so I was going to say, who is he?
Junk is also a Junk DNA, who is also a music creator. Will also curate your very own meditation for you. Basically, diving deep into your subconscious and really opening up the deepest parts of yourself and really having an experience personalized to you in a way that's, unique. So give that a try. Reach out to them. This is the quantumlight.us and Junk DNA. And this is his third annual Star Bloom Fest. It's going to be an in-person gathering. For now, there's more information on his website. I am not privy to all of it because he hasn't given me the full rundown of it all. But just we'll go to quantumlight.us for more information. And that is the quantumlight.us. I'll try and full screen that so you can see it on the bottom there. Sorry. And one more thing before we end the night. So we have the Lumerian connection. So this is something completely different. This is really diving into the idea of the ancient world of Lumeria and what it stood for, and really giving an understanding to a society that was lost so prematurely in its development that it deserved. So, the idea and the goal is to get back to that Lumerian experience, no matter how hard it is. So, check out bit.ly/Lumerian connection for more information on that. And, yeah. And as always, have yourselves a wonderful rest of your night. Thank you so much for tuning in to the New Templars Mystery School. And we will be back next week for another interesting topic. And as always, keep on seeking. Good night, everyone.